There's so many attachments that as you really dig into the mindset stuff, a lot of limiting beliefs. And that's just beautiful stuff to work through. So I think that as long as we really make personal growth the goal, you cannot lose. Like, you can face any fear, any challenge, any attachment, and just say, what a great opportunity for me to learn more about myself and grow.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I am very excited to have an expert in one of the most important aspects of health, and also an expert in mindset and habit change, which is, in my opinion, probably the other most important aspect of health, right? There's always two sides. There's a mental aspect, and then there's kind of like the more of I wouldn't, maybe physical or kind of health aspect related to that. So we have Dr. Morgan Nolte, who is a board certified clinical specialist in geriatric physical therapy, and recognizing a lack of prevention, education, and care that focused on reversing risk factors instead of just treating systems, she founded Zivli, an online course and coaching program that helps adults reverse insulin resistance for long-term weight loss and disease prevention. She's already helped millions of people through her YouTube channel. She has tons of subscribers. You should go ahead and subscribe as well. I'm sure you're going to love what you hear. Dr. Nolte, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Talor, I'm so excited to be here and just hopefully add a lot of value to your audience. And if I help one person or give one person one good idea that they can just go ahead and do, I hope, I would consider that a success. So I'm very much excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, let's start. I know I want to talk about mindset and habit change, because to me, that's probably the most important thing, right? Like, people know what to do, but why aren't they doing it? People know they want to lose weight. Why can't they lose weight? So the mental aspect is so important. But also, I know you're an expert on insulin resistance. So certainly that's very important as well. I want to touch on a few things there. So we're going to kind of do maybe a little bit of both of those, which I'm so excited about. But let's start maybe a little bit about your background of how you got so interested in insulin resistance and some of the important things you've learned along the way.
Absolutely. So as a geriatric physical therapist, we are really good at being a jack of all trades. So I would see a lot of people in their 70s and their 80s and their 90s. And what I noticed were patterns. That's really what makes someone an expert, is when they can notice patterns very quickly. And what I noticed was nobody just had diabetes, nobody just had heart disease, and nobody just had dementia. They had a triad of symptoms. Every single chart that I would review had acronyms, DM, HDL, HTN, so diabetes, hyperlipidemia or altered cholesterol, hypertension, high blood pressure. And I'm like, why do all of these people have all of these things? Why are they all occurring together? And as I went down this rabbit hole of diabetes prevention, because that was really my biggest passion, was, insulin resistance is at the root cause of all of them. And it was so interesting to find out that not only does insulin resistance cause diabetes, but it's also a huge contributor to heart disease, to dementia, to osteoarthritis, to sarcopenia or muscle wasting. And I thought, holy cow, if we can help people prevent and reverse insulin resistance, we can kill the most birds with one stone. We can preserve quality of life. We can save tons in medical expenses and caregiver responsibility. And so that really became my ultimate passion. Out of a desperation to help people earlier in life, because I saw the devastation that it caused later in life. We're talking about people with diabetes who were bedbound because they were so obese, because they had to take so much insulin, and working with them for months and months and months, and you just can't even get them out of the bed anymore. Or they had to suffer an amputation, and then now they have to have a wheelchair and modify their home. Or they have dementia and they don't even remember their own children anymore. And so all of these things just broke my heart to the point where I couldn't not do something about it. I had to be more proactive. And unfortunately, our medical system does not pay for this. Insurance does not pay for preventative care. And so I started Zivli to be able to serve the people that wanted to be helped in this way, the people that were not okay with the status quo medicine care of, oh, your blood sugars are a little bit high, so like, let's just watch it for now, or here's a blood pressure medication. There is so much that we can do aside from medications to prevent and reverse conditions related to insulin resistance. So that's really where my passion was born, was just out of that heartbreak that I saw and the ultimate knowing, like to my core, that this is what I am meant to do. I am meant to help people age well and age in a way that's healthy, that preserves their quality of life and independence.
That's amazing. And I think it's pretty clear that avoiding diabetes should be one of the biggest goals in people's life, right? Avoiding getting pre-diabetes and diabetes and going down that path that we know that increases the chance of, every disease, every kind of sickness that you can imagine, pain in the body, all the things you just mentioned. So I actually have a quick question for you. So a lot of people you'll see, like when you get a blood test, you'll see your HbA1c, and then there's also like different things with like insulin resistance. Can you kind of explain, maybe for people to understand a little bit more, like about those numbers, those markers, and what's the difference between insulin resistance versus having a HbA1c score?
Yeah. Well, I think there's 3 numbers that people should be aware of. And the first is their fasting glucose. And what that is, it's your blood glucose at a moment in time when you haven't eaten for at least 8 hours. And ideally, that's in the 90s, but you're going to be pre-diabetic if it's over 100. So remember the number 100 for fasting glucose, that should be a red flag to you. The second thing is your hemoglobin A1c. This is not the same thing as fasting glucose. Your hemoglobin A1c is a 3-month estimate of your blood sugar. And so different doctors have different cutoffs. Optimal is really less than 5.5. Most physicians are going to say around 6 is the pivotal point where if you lower it, you can avoid medications. If you don't lower it, you're probably going to be prescribed medications or have to do something very significant with your lifestyle. So remember 100 for fasting glucose. Remember 6 for the hemoglobin A1c, just keeping it very simple for people here. And then fasting insulin is different from both of those. And what most people don't know is that your fasting insulin can predict type 2 diabetes 10 to 20 years before fasting glucose or hemoglobin A1c. And your physician is probably not checking it. It is not an expensive test. If you ask your physician to order an insulin test for you and they look at you like you have 2 heads, you are not alone. Physicians are still learning this stuff themselves. It is not standard of practice yet. Now, we have insulin tests on our website that you can order. It's an at-home finger prick test, or you can go to a website like testing.com or ultalabs.com and order one. I think it's less than $30, and then go into a Quest or a LabCorp and get your insulin checked. So insulin is actually the hormone that controls your blood sugar. And so you're going to see a rise in your insulin before you see a rise in your blood glucose or your hemoglobin A1c. But if you're not checking it, then you don't have those 1 to 2 decades of hey, heads up, you're heading towards diabetes. And that's why so many people, especially in their 40s, 50s, women after menopause, they're like, oh my gosh, I was just like blindsided with these high blood sugars. Well, if you had been checking insulin or your physician had been, you would have had a heads up. And so an ideal fasting insulin level is 6. So if you remember 100, 6, 6, know your numbers. It's very important to do so.
That is really good information. I had not heard anyone say that about that being a predictor kind of 10 or 20 years out and people not even knowing about getting that test. So that is really cool. And shout out your website where people can buy the finger prick test if they're interested in that.
Yeah. It's Zivli.com. That's Zivli.com and then /testing, but they'll see it on our website if they want to do that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so now someone gets their tests, they start noticing, I'm a little high here. What are some of the biggest culprits or some of the biggest kind of lifestyle changes that people can make?
Okay. We describe it as a 4-pillar approach. So we have nutrition, which includes what you eat and when you eat. we have stress, sleep, and physical activity. And there are things that you can do within all of those pillars to lower your insulin levels. So from a dietary standpoint, because we're spending kind of half of this interview on nutrition or insulin resistance, half on mindset, I'll keep it very basic. The first thing to do is reduce added sugars. If you are having any sugary beverage, pop, Gatorade, orange juice, apple juice, kombucha that has sugar in it, I do not care. You are directly raising your blood sugar levels. And when your blood sugar levels rise, your insulin has to be released from the pancreas, because insulin's job is to keep your blood sugars in a normal state. So when they spike up like that, that's a huge tax on your pancreas, and that will contribute to insulin resistance. Just for reference, I think this is so interesting. In your human body, like 5 liters of blood, there's only about 1 teaspoon of sugar circulating at any given moment. And that's about 4 grams. A Pepsi has 41 grams of added sugar. And so when think about that, 41 grams going into 4 grams, your body has to do a lot of work to get back down to that 4-gram baseline. So the very first thing I recommend people doing is look at the added sugars in your food, read your food labels, eliminate or significantly reduce added sugars from your diet. There's always a healthier alternative. So if they have any questions on that, they can reach us at support@zivli.com. We're happy to help troubleshoot what those might be for them. The second thing is to reduce refined and processed seed oils. And these are tricky because these are found in a lot of different processed foods, but especially fried foods and salad dressings and condiments. So for example, if you're looking at the ketchup bottle, you're going to see added sugar in the ketchup bottle. You're probably also going to see soybean oil or canola oil. Those are 2 really common processed seed oils that contribute to inflammation. And we know that elevated levels of inflammation drive insulin resistance and vice versa. High levels of insulin also drive inflammation. And that's why we have members who significantly reduce their sugar intake, and their inflammation, their joint pain just goes down so much. And then they have a negative reinforcement episode where it's a holiday or a birthday and they have some sugar again. And they're like, holy cow, was I inflamed? I did not realize how good I felt until I had sugar again. And so I think that those are 2 nutritional things that anybody can start doing right now. Look at your food labels, look for added sugars, and look for those seed oil. So there's a list of them, but canola oil, soybean oil, vegetable oil, you're going to want to find a healthier alternative for those 2 things. And then from a sleep standpoint, if you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night and getting good sleep, you are elevating your risk for insulin resistance. I don't care how good Yellowstone is or Suits or whatever other show you're watching on Netflix. Like you should be very committed to your sleep if you want to be a healthy person. So I would highly encourage you to set a good bedtime, and then about 1 to 2 hours before you want to be asleep, put on blue light blocking glasses. So you have to use the amber colored ones, like the orange ones. They're not sexy, but I always say good sleep is sexy. So wear them anyways. And you can get them for $40 on Amazon. So I like the Spectra 479 brand. I'm not an affiliate. It's just the ones that I use. And what that does is when you block blue light, it allows your cortisol levels to come down. And the cortisol is produced from the blue light coming from the TV or your phone or your tablet. And cortisol and melatonin are on teeter-totter. So if cortisol is up, melatonin cannot come up. So I hear all the time, people are like, I'm watching TV and then I'm popping these melatonin gummies. And I'm like, just wear blue light blockers and then the melatonin can come up naturally. So that's my biggest sleep tip for people, is to really get mindful of your light environment and block the blue light. From a stress standpoint, I'll put a pause on that because we're going to talk about that in the mindset part of the episode. And that's huge. So big. I had a member yesterday show me a picture of her continuous glucose monitor data. And it was on a day where she had to give a speech and she was nervous about it. And she woke up in the morning and she had great fasting blood sugars. And then you could see it starting to rise at 6 a.m. And yes, there is a cortisol, like a morning glucose response from elevated cortisol. That's normal, but hers was way exaggerated above that. It got up to 154 fasting by the time she gave her speech. And then after the speech, you could see it come back down. And so stress management is critical, so overlooked. I really like the quote from Dr. Jason Fung, who wrote the Obesity Code. He said, stress has neither calories nor carbohydrates, but can raise insulin and contribute to weight gain and insulin resistance. So stress management is so important. And then physical activity is important too. And two really, really quick tips here. Strength training should be the cornerstone of any physical activity program. All major muscle groups, moderate to high intensity, at least twice per week. And we just, at the time of this recording, we just released on YouTube a playlist with 30 different strength training videos of me showing you all of the basic movements you need to know to design a strength training program. There's a really good intro video too that talks about how to get started, how to prevent your risk for injury, how to fuel around your workout to maximize strength gains, how to modify each movement with a dumbbell or a band or external load. So now there is no excuse. If you're like, oh, I don't know how, like now there's a playlist. You can go to my YouTube channel and check it out. And again, that's all free. So strength training has got to be a priority cornerstone, a non-negotiable habit that you develop. The second thing from a blood sugar standpoint is movement after meals. If you can go for a 10 or a 20-minute walk or bike ride, maybe even just walking up and down your stairs at home for about 10 minutes after you eat, what happens is your muscles will soak in any glucose that you just ate, reducing the need for as much insulin to be produced to manage those blood sugars. So muscle demand, movement, physical activity of any kind, especially after you eat and especially after you eat carbohydrates, is going to be great for your blood sugar regulation. So those would be the 4 pillars that we cover in our full program.
That's excellent. Those are some really, really great. You just condensed a lot of amazing tips. People may want to rewind that and listen to that again, because that was really, really good. And I think, I totally agree with you. I wear the blue light blocking glasses as well every night. And now when I'm not wearing them, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, my eyes, you can feel it.
You can feel the eye strain.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And the seed oils is a really tough one. I've actually been trying to develop a seed oil free healthy salad dressing for some time, going back and forth on many variations, trying to get one that tastes decent, because I think it's just really a shame. I'm really just trying to scratch my own itch, because it's really a shame that there are very few salad dressings, even in Whole Foods, that don't contain seed oils. Primal Kitchen was one of them, but now that they've sold to a big company, I've really seen the quality kind of go down a little bit. Yeah, I've noticed it's not quite the same formulations. So, and it's really hard. It's not easy to find a good one. So you really got to kind of search. Primal Kitchen does still have some good, ketchup and some of the dressings I think are probably your best option, just because there's no other game in town really, unless if you have any recommendations there. But I think the seed oils are probably the hardest for people. I'm also like a label detective, looking for added sugars and seed oils on every label. I think obviously we know snacks. They're very common in snacks. They're very common in salad dressings. Ketchup should always be organic. Otherwise, it's going to have, like you said, a high fructose or some of these other things. But and avoiding fried foods is obviously kind of the worst culprit there. But yeah, it's even hard for me to go out to eat many times. I'm the guy asking the waiter, what oil is this cooked in?
I've done that too at Who Hot here in Omaha, because they have all of those little oils that you can put on your meat and your vegetables. And I'm like, I know this is super annoying, but what kind of oil do you use? And they're like, we don't know. And I'm like, it's probably soybean.
Right. Right.
But it's worth, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's always a trade-off, good, better, best. I believe in exception meals because I don't like the all or nothing mindset. But if we can make 90 to 95% of our diet and our lifestyle very clean and buttoned up, then we have that capacity to be resilient when we give it something that's not optimal. That's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Well, let's move on now to the mindset side of things, which I'm really excited about. This is my jam. This is to me the most interesting, fun kind of stuff. And if people, because it's like, look, we've got 150 podcast episodes now, getting around there. Some, and so people know what they should and shouldn't be doing for the most part. Or you can listen to a few podcasts and you'll know some of the things we just said: avoid added sugar, fried foods, eat real whole foods, and, exercise and get good sleep. Right. So then it's like, okay, well, why are so many people not doing it? Why can't the people turn off Netflix? Why can't they avoid seed oils and added sugar? Why can't they make changes now once they realize how bad all those habits were for them?
Well, this is my favorite thing to talk about, really. I kind of came into this field through insulin resistance and then realized very quickly that strategy alone is not enough. Like, we have to have really, really good behavior change information as well, and mindset change information to get people the long-term results that they want. Why do people know what to do and not do it? My argument is they don't know what to do. If they say they know what to do and they're not doing it, I don't believe you, because you may understand what to do. You may be able to reiterate to me, I know this, 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 and this. But your results will always reflect your commitments, and your commitments always reflect your standards. And so there's a difference, right, between like knowing how and really being able. And I think that's the clearest distinction that I could give somebody. You might know the information, you may have studied the information, but I think with all of the content online now, there's very blurry lines between like content and education. And people are absorbing a lot of information, but they may not be acting on that information. And so there's that disconnect. That's for one. There's a lot of conflicting information too, which leads to procrastination. If like, well, I don't want to do anything until I know exactly what to do. But I think for one, I just want to point blank say, if you know what to do and you're not doing it, you don't know what to do, period. Like, period. So stop telling yourself that. Be honest with yourself. I think it's very important that we talk about a goal versus a standard. So a goal is like, I want to lose 20 pounds. The standard is your everyday thought and actions that help you reach the goal. And way too many people are working towards the goal. So we want to reverse engineer our goals. So essentially what I teach people how to do is create something, we call it a personal faith formula. You can call it like a wellness vision statement, whatever you want. You got to get yourself in the frame of mind using not what you can see, what you can hear, what is around you, but like using that internal knowing of what is possible for you. What does that best version of yourself look like? What do they feel like? What are they experiencing? What is their health like? What are their thoughts like? What are their emotions like? And we really create a very in-depth, I call it like the master mindset document of the future version of themselves. And once we have created that, then we want to use something called auto-suggestion to make that our reality. And auto-suggestion is essentially messaging that we give ourselves. It is intentional brainwashing. We want to brainwash ourselves from the future version of ourselves. And so once we have that crystal clear picture of who we want to become, every single choice is made from the goal. Every single thought is either accepted or rejected from the goal. And we no longer negotiate down, we negotiate up. So beautiful example of this from my own life that I'm currently working on is I am working on going to bed at 9 o'clock every night and getting up at 5 a.m. every morning to do my morning mindset routine and my exercise. I negotiate with myself 8:55, 9 o'clock. Oh, I can stay up another 5 minutes. I can stay up another 10 minutes. I can go till 9:15. Then I have to pause and ask myself, am I negotiating with myself? Yes. Therefore, the program is running. Anytime you are negotiating with yourself or rationalizing a decision, oh, it's just one bite, it's just one piece of candy, I'll start again on Monday, I'm just going to press snooze for now, I'll work out later today. All of those are negotiations indicating that your old programming is running and you are not making decisions from the future version of yourself. So we have to get really, really good at accepting and rejecting ideas from the future version of ourselves, which requires us to get that future version of ourselves into our brain as often as possible. So we're going to talk about a morning and an evening routine, and then an auto-suggestion tip that I am currently using and recommend people use. So the very first thing that I want people to recognize is most people do not reach their goals because they are letting external circumstances affect their internal behavior, affect their thoughts. They are blaming their spouse. They're blaming social situations. They're blaming their parents, and they're not taking full radical responsibility for their own thoughts that actually produce the results. So we've got to first off recognize you are not going to solve this problem from the current level of consciousness. We've got to future pace yourself, keep yourself there, work backwards. I say it over and over again. I'm hoping it hits home on the third time. All right, so how do we do this? A lot of people talk about a morning routine. I talk about a morning routine. However, I have found an evening routine to be even more beneficial than a morning routine. And there's a few reasons here. Why do we do these routines? Why do we have mindset processes? Self-esteem, confidence, mini wins, all of these geared towards that future version of yourself will create momentum. And I like to say, let's start with this mindset stuff because it is free, 100% free. It requires no more than 20 to 30 minutes at a time. You can spend more on it if you want. You can spend less on it if you want. And it requires zero physical activity. So why would we not capitalize on a way to build your self-confidence, build your self-esteem, and gain momentum that's free, easy, and fast? If you can't do a morning routine and an evening routine, you are not fully committed to your goal. You are not fully committed to that future version of yourself. And so I think that people lie to themselves and they're like, yeah, I have a goal. And I'm like, well, show me what you're doing every day. And I'll tell you if you have a goal or if you have a wish. Because many people are just walking around the world with wishes, but if they're not actually taking action, they don't have a goal. They have a wish. So we have to take deliberate action and use discipline. I think so many people have an aversion to discipline, but success is not possible without discipline. Success is not possible without failure. So we really need to reframe our appreciation of failure and discipline and view them as beautiful tools to grow. So I always say, like, if you're going to set a goal, make growth the goal. Get 1% better every single day and focus on the things that you actually have control on, which are your thoughts, your energy, your attention, your focus, your attitude. Those are the types of things to give your energy to, not any external circumstances. So pay attention, your thoughts, your attitude, like your mood, the intention that you're putting behind things, and your focus. You are going to just skyrocket your results and have so much more energy because you're not wasting it complaining, and you're not wasting it on social media, and you're not wasting it by letting all of these external stimuli affect what you're doing. All right, so evening routine, back to that. First thing we do, listen to and read your personal faith formula. So whatever that vision is that you have for yourself, I want you to listen to it, okay? The second thing that you're going to do is review your action items. So assuming you did, action items for one day, they may carry over, but action items, they should change on a day-to-day basis. I always have some that recur. So my morning routine, which includes this mindset stuff, my exercise, and then I write out everything I need to do for that day. Whether it's like this is an action item for my day. Whether or not my kids have to wear something funny to school because it's Spirit Week or something like that. Or if I have to remember to call my friend's kid because it's their birthday and I don't want to forget that. I'm writing out everything. And that way it's in my mind, my subconscious mind, and I'm so much less likely to forget something. And guess what? I get to check things off and recognize my wins throughout the day. So usually I do that the night before so that I have some time to sleep on it and think about, did I forget anything? Did I overcommit? All of those things. The other thing that I like to ask myself is, did I live up to my standards today? In what ways did I negotiate or rationalize with myself? What behaviors showed up today that aren't serving me? And so many people study content. They read books, they listen to podcasts just like this one, but they forget to study themselves. And we have to become students of our own behavior more so than anything else. An example from my own life is urgency. I'm really good at being on time. I'm not very good at being early yet. And so I'm working to create a little pocket, and that's going to help reduce my stress level from always being urgent from one activity to the next. But if I wasn't attentive to my emotional state throughout the day and realizing, man, when am I not operating at my highest level? When am I more likely to emotionally eat? Oh yeah, it's when I'm feeling urgent. It's when I'm feeling rushed. So let's reduce or eliminate that cue by learning how to think about time differently and be early. And if I can eliminate that urgency, that emotional trigger to overeat or emotionally eat, guess what? I have solved that problem. And is that what my future version does? Is that the future version myself? Are they ever late? No, they're 5 minutes early. So I accept that decision. So that's how we kind of work together. We're asking ourselves really good, thoughtful questions about our own behavior and studying ourselves. And then the last thing I really like to do is gratitude. So gratitude for the day, that's really going to raise your vibrations, put you on a higher emotional plane. And this can be hard for people, especially if they're not used to practicing gratitude, or if they live with a cynic, or if they're in a toxic environment. And so if you struggle with gratitude, what I want you to do is use your 5 senses. So like, what is one thing that you're grateful for that you see? What is one thing that you're grateful for that you hear, or that you feel, or that you smell, or that you taste? And getting very granular with the gratitude. It's not, I'm grateful for my husband, or I'm grateful for my kids, or I'm grateful for my job. Like, that's not going to ignite emotion. We have to ignite emotion, because if we want to impact your behavior, we have to impact your subconscious thoughts. Those are the ones that are responsible for like 90 to 95+% of the thoughts in a day. Most of us are running on autopilot, which is fine if your autopilot knows where you want to go. And that is what we were doing with this mindset stuff. And so impacting your subconscious mind requires emotion, because that's the language that it speaks. It'd be like me talking to you in German or Russian. I don't know if you speak those languages, but if you were talking to me in those languages, I have no idea what you're saying. And I think a lot of people are going through the motions of this mindset stuff. They're doing a morning routine or an evening routine, and it's not doing anything, because it's not creating an emotional experience for them. They're not connecting to their mind. And so that's done with language. That's done through, you can add music to this process. You can add movement to this process. There's all different ways. So that would be the evening routine. Okay. In the morning, we wake up, we do not press snooze, because the future version of yourself does not press snooze. So stop it. Stop pressing snooze and start your day invigorated and inspired to make it the best day ever. And then what you're going to do is you're going to read that personal faith formula. Again, listen to it as well. I like to say read and listen, because multimodal will impact that subconscious mind faster. And it's also, sometimes they're a little bit long, so like reading a long document over and over and over again, your brain wants to zone out. If you're just listening, it might want to zone out. But if you're really reading it and paying attention, you're less likely to zone out and focus, right? We can control our focus and our attention and our effort and our attitude. So we want to do everything with intention. After that, you're going to review those action items that you set for the day. And you're going to say, is this realistic? Because a lot of times we bite off more than we can chew, and we set ourselves up for disappointment. And so it's like, just be realistic with yourself. If the only 2 things on your action item list is morning routine and evening routine, get it done. Like, bite off less to start with, so that you can start to build that self-confidence. I always encourage people in their personal faith formula to write a line at the end of it that says, I am committed to a morning and evening routine to hold myself accountable to this standard. And that is like this accountability loop. So if you read that every morning and you read it every night, you're going to be more likely to do it. So I have found morning and evening routines to be so helpful. But then another little hack is if you create like a 30-second clip that you can listen to when you go to the bathrooms. So I don't know about what you do when you're on the bathroom, but I used to just scroll Pinterest or I'd scroll Instagram, and then you're getting just all this external messaging, right? And I found myself judging a lot, and I'm like, I don't want to be judgmental. I don't care to judge that family member. Like, why am I exposing myself to this cue that starts this judgment cycle? Why not be more intentional about the messaging that I'm giving myself? So I kind of created a more distilled 30-second clip that I can just pop on when I'm going to the bathroom. And I like it to include something that I really want to focus on. And so a couple of things in there right now are, I focus, or I control my thoughts, focus, attitude, effort, that kind of stuff, what I can. And then I don't snack, overeat, or emotionally eat. I've gotten those habits really dialed in, but there's always room for improvement. And so I'm really trying to study myself. Like, how can I optimize my health? I cannot overeat, I cannot snack, and I cannot emotionally eat. And once I started doing that, what I realized was I was negotiating down a lot of the time with myself, letting that old programming run, like, well, it's, just one bite, or like, how much really is overeating, or whatever it was. It's like, no, one bite is your new standard. And so when I get very clear, when you keep giving yourself this messaging, it'll be amazing to see the new ideas that come into your mind. It'll be amazing to see the self-confidence that you build when you check things off of your list. I'm a journal gal. I like this in a journal. And even this morning, I had how many wins? 12, 13, 14 wins before 6:30 a.m. because I wrote out my exercise, and I wrote out like split squat, RDLs, sumo squat. What else did I do? Something else, warm up, cool down. And I did 4 sets of everything. I just check it off every time. Like, yep. And you can see, like, this is a snowball effect. And once you start to build more self-confidence, more self-esteem, more self-integrity, like, you will be unstoppable. But it does start with your thoughts. And then those thoughts have got to result in action. But that's why that auto-suggestion piece is so critical. So any questions there? I would love to hear your insights and maybe what some of your mindset practices are, since you said it was a passion of yours too.
Yeah, I absolutely love everything you just said. I feel like I just got a free coaching session, which is amazing. And yes, I have, I think what we're talking about here, which I think, I mentioned this a long time ago, maybe I should do another podcast about it, but it's about your identity. You're actually changing your identity as a person. Yeah. Right. And that's not just something you just snap your fingers and do. You have to do these practices that you're talking about. And by the way, everything you said, I've done a lot of research, a lot of training, a lot of personal development, and everything you just said was just top notch, really some of the best advice, really condensed, really nicely. So thank you for that. And I highly recommend that people join your coaching program, because and make a commitment right now while it's hot in your mind, right? While you're motivated, you're listening to this, you're like, you know what? I can do this. Other people are doing it. She's helped millions of people on YouTube, tons of people in her coaching program. So take action while it's hot in your mind, because, if you haven't done it on your own to date, maybe the time to actually join a program and get some help with it is now. So I first want to really highly recommend people do that. And what we're talking about is, I always said, like, for me, when I was in massive pain and inflammation about 11 years ago, I was kind of forced to change. And then when I changed and I started feeling so good, then it would just completely changed my identity, right? So for me, it's like I give this example sometimes, like if I go to my daughter's birthday party of a friend or something like that, and they're giving everyone cake, and it's not, I don't have to think, oh, should I have the cake? Should I have a cheat day today? Like my identity is just, I don't eat cake. My identity is, I don't eat bread, right? So my identity is, I don't eat fried foods, right? So this is literally, it actually makes the decision very easy to me, in my opinion, and takes the stress out of it, because there's no like, oh, should I have a cheat day? Should I not? I don't know. And like going back and forth, and right. It's just, no, it's just, that's not who I am. And so I think, and some people will say, well, that's extreme. I can't be like that as much as you, but like, there is a level of discipline, and also it's a priority. And so kind of looping this into my morning routine, I, every day, as soon as my wife and daughters leave for school, I try to make them their healthy smoothies and get them all ready, and they leave for school. And I go outside with my coffee, and I'm visualizing, and I'm doing my affirmations and auto suggestion, and I'm visualizing. And for me, I've done a lot of thinking time. I've done a lot of thinking time in this morning time here, right? My phone is on airplane mode. It's inside in a drawer. I'm not looking at it first thing in the morning, because this is the most important time for me to, like you said, brainwash my own mind and think. And so when I think, I'm like, what is the most important goal? Like, what's the most important thing in my life? Like, is there one goal that if I actually achieve that goal, everything else is secondary and doesn't even matter? And so for me, I've identified that big goal as, if me, my wife, and my two daughters could all live to over 100 years old and live happy, healthy lives as a close-knit, happy, healthy family, then really everything else is secondary. How much money I make, and everything else is secondary if I achieve that goal. And it's funny, because I'm in like a lot of business groups and things like that, mastermind groups and stuff, and you see people who are just so focused. It's like, this guy has $100 million, and yet he, is pre-diabetes and is 70 pounds overweight. And it's like, you already have the money, like your priorities. And it's like, what's the point of having $100 million if you pass away at 65 when you could have lived to 95? You didn't even meet your grandkids. You could have, but you didn't, because you didn't prioritize things the right way. So I think once you really, and see, most people, when they just wake up and jump into their phone or do social media and they just let all these other things go in their mind, they don't actually take the time to think and get that kind of clarity to realize what's actually important, and then start doing all the things you talk about to prioritize and take those actions from there. So.
Yeah, you're right, though. They let the external affect the internal. And I think I wrote down a couple words. The first is inspirationally dissatisfied. That's what you were when you were so inflamed. And I think that a lot of people are dissatisfied, but maybe not inspirationally dissatisfied. And they're waiting for a wake-up call. Like, don't wait for the wake-up call. Just do it. Just start upgrading your standards right away. That's why I love the standard model, is like, you can upgrade it right now. Like right now, you can make that decision. So it's okay to be inspirationally dissatisfied. Let that move you towards that future version of yourself. The other thing that I think is important from a mindset perspective is attachments. And on our podcast, we did a couple episodes recently on non-attachment. And then the other three are non-resistance, non-reaction, and non-judgment. And those 4 principles have been so beneficial to me in my mindset and in my stress management. But a lot of people are attached to their current habits, and that's why they can't form new ones. They're attached to their current emotional state. That's why they can't feel happier. They're attached to the actual or perceived judgments or opinions of other people. And that's why they can't create their own opinions of themselves. And so I think that there's so many attachments that, as you really dig into the mindset stuff, a lot of limiting beliefs. And that's just beautiful stuff to work through. So I think that as long as we really make personal growth the goal, you cannot lose. Like, you can face any fear, any challenge, any attachment, and just say, what a great opportunity for me to learn more about myself and grow. So I think having that shift in perspective from like a fear of failure to like, you cannot fail after go. After go, you can't fail. That helps. And then the other thing to remember too, motivation gets you to the starting line, but discipline gets you to the finish line. And so lots of people start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. So we have to really mix our commitments with intentional discipline so that they marry and they become inseparable. And it's like your commitment automatically triggers the discipline required to reach your goal. So I think that we really want to start to appreciate discipline a little bit more and start with these simple disciplines of thought. The most important thing that you can discipline is your thought. because everything else stems from there. So that morning and evening routine that I just described would be a really, really lovely thing for people to start disciplining their thoughts. And if I had to give one more tip on a mindset thing from an external to an internal standpoint, track your time. Like if you had to just track your time for 1 week, you would be able to save at least an hour and a half a week. I almost guarantee it. So whatever you're doing, write it down in a journal and then say, was that productive or was that unproductive? Was that moving me towards my goal or was that not? And then you're eliminating those unproductive activities and planting new productive activities in place. Or like you said, just rest and think. Like that's personally something that I'm working towards more and more and more, is the future version of myself thinks a lot more. They sit in silence a lot more. They meditate more. And so those, I think sometimes the work is in the rest, if it's intentional and thoughtfully designed rest. So I think just for my own life, that's kind of something I'm working on too.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Everything you said is completely right. Man, so much amazing stuff in this episode. I really, really, really enjoyed this episode.
Thanks.
I highly encourage people listening right now to sign. If you haven't made the change on your own, get some help. If you liked what you heard today, which I did, and I would sign up for this program myself if I wasn't so into it and doing all the stuff already myself. So please tell people, where can they follow you? Where can they learn more? Maybe tell them a quick thing about your program, and who is the program for?
Yeah. So our full Zivli program is a 12-week online course and coaching program that helps you prevent and reverse insulin resistance. We have the strategy, we have the mindset, we have the weekly group coaching. We do have an option for one-on-one coaching with our team. We open enrollment twice a year, and it's going to be open again in September of 24. So I'm not sure when this is airing. And if people want to get started before then, they can do our starter course. That's just $97. It's a 2-hour video training where I talk about how to properly eat to prevent and reverse insulin resistance. So you can lower the blood sugar, lower your blood pressure, and lose weight. So I think that's a really nice starter place. My podcast is Reshape Your Health. We are on YouTube, just at Dr. Morgan Nolte, Zivli. We just passed 100,000 subscribers. So I'm super pumped about that. And it's a great place to learn more about insulin resistance. And we work with people of all ages. Adults 18 plus. We work with men and women. We tend to work mostly with postmenopausal women. Just as a geriatric physical therapist, that's who I attract more often. So a lot of times them and then their spouses will join together.
Yeah, but I think so many of the mindset tips and the tips that you gave would benefit so many people, even in their 30s, 40s, and younger ages as well. So
I'm teaching my son this, and he's 5. I mean, really, I'm teaching my son auto-suggestion right now. Like, you can use this no matter your age. So I think thank you for pointing that out. And I hope people really do take advantage of this episode. I hope they take action. Like, don't just consider this content. Study yourself and start to implement some of these. Go back and re-listen to this once, twice, 3, 4 times. Take notes, write down those questions that I said, and then actually start to ask yourself those questions. That would be my challenge to the listeners.
Absolutely. And visualize your future self, right? Visualize your future self and think about the changes that you could make now, looking back from your future self now, the changes you could make now that your future self would be so proud of and would be such a great version of yourself, right? So just think about it right now, really take action if you're inspired by what you heard. And Dr. Nolte, this has been so much fun for me. I'm feeling super stimulated and ready to go about the rest of my day. So thank you so much for making my day. And I'm sure you are helping many, many people listening right now as well. So thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, can you please leave us a rating or review and subscribe? I've realized that while we have actually increased our downloads a lot, we're actually getting a lot of downloads, which I'm really happy about. We actually have very few ratings. And I realized that I've never asked people really to rate much. So I'm asking you now if you could please rate and review and subscribe. And if you enjoyed the episode, please forward it along to anyone that you think will get value out of this. Also, if you haven't checked out our line of products at buypeakperformance.com, you get 20% off your first order. That's www.buypeakperformance.com. peakperformance.com. We have some incredible products, including our organic high-altitude coffee. If you don't know this, coffee is one of the most heavily sprayed with pesticides out of any crop. So it's really important that you drink organic coffee. We've gone above and beyond to source what we believe is the highest quality and healthiest organic coffee in the world. We're also famous for our organic green superfood powder. You can get 20% off of that as well at buypeakperformance.com. We also have an organic vegan and paleo plant protein. See, most of the vegan proteins out there are using brown rice protein, which is really not a good source of protein, and it's also a grain. And if you're paleo, you know that grains tend to cause inflammation in some cases for some people. And so we wanted to make one that was paleo friendly and vegan and organic. We made an amazing amino acid profile, so it's really one of the best plant proteins for muscle building. So you can check out Peak Performance Organic Plant Protein. You can find that on our website. Of course, all our products are on Amazon as well. So thanks again. And again, please, if you enjoyed the episode, please forward it along to someone who you feel can get value out of it. And please leave us a rating, review, and subscribe. Thank you.